Welcome to This Week in the Division 2, your only source for all the news, posts, build guides and more. Let's be honest with each other. There are a shit ton of Division 2 YouTube videos released every week, far too many to keep up with them all. So don't, because I'm going to do it for you. In this video I'm going to run through every Division 2 video released this week. In the description below I will leave a link to every video I watch so that it's easy for you to go straight to the ones that interest you. And to make this video as easy as possible to use, here are the timestamps for each section. You can also use the chapters below to jump straight to them. Now, I didn't watch every live stream or Let's Play video, but technically, there are too fucking many of them. But look out for the names of them all at the end of the video. The Division community was split again this week as the 999 exotic components bug rocked the game. What players discovered was that if you overstacked shade calibrations through the use of mules and then opened a shade cache from the stretch event, you would be rewarded with up to 999 exotic components. Given that these are the rarest components and a key resource within the expertise system, this obviously had the potential to break the resource economy in the game. So it probably wasn't that surprising that Massive fixed the bug with an urgent maintenance. So what has got players so upset? Well, firstly, some were upset that players were even using this exploit, as they called it, as it gave them an unfair advantage. The trolls jumped on this and fake bans were posted all over social media, and those faced with a potential ban were upset as a result. And then there were those who were upset that Massive had fixed the bug so quickly when long-standing bugs in the game that don't favour the players never have the resource given to them to be fixed, which seems a fair point. There is absolutely a difference between a bug and an exploit. An exploit typically needs players to do things to artificially break the game, and that wasn't the case here. So for me, this definitely isn't a bannable event. But it does highlight something that I know isn't going to be popular, but I do think it needs to be said. It's time for expertise to be removed from the game. Expertise was first introduced into the game way back with Title Update 15 in May 2022, which was optimistically called Rebirth. Let's be honest with each other, expertise is a system for a dead game. It artificially introduces an infinite gameplay loop which needs almost no development time to maintain. When coupled with the seasons, which are essentially just a rehash of existing content, you have a low maintenance way to keep players engaged with the game. The problem is that, as I reported last week, the Division 2 is seeing something of a comeback. The Brooklyn DLC is coming at the perfect time with Destiny 2 on live support. The work that Massive have done over the last 18 months to 2 years on the new player experience is paying off, and that is causing a problem. With expertise to hit level 30 in Season 1 of Year 7, how do you balance the game for both veterans and new players when one has 30% weapon damage more than the other? On top of that, expertise creates a perceived barrier to entry for new players. The grind to max out expertise can appear very overwhelming, even though in reality you don't really need to do it, as all the content in the game can be completed without it. But if new players don't, they will always be lagging behind veterans in terms of damage output, which has to be a big turn-off. To deal with this, expertise needs to go, and I actually think that Massive have made the first steps towards this. As I reported 2 weeks ago, the Shade Mule system is being eliminated from the game when the Battle for Brooklyn DLC launches on May the 27th. In response to this, Massive announced that they will be making short-term improvements through tripling the amount of resources that you get from Scavenging Points. This would reduce the gap between the old meta and the new system that they are creating. And this new system will be revealed sometime within Year 7. As Massive mentioned in the patch notes, they are also considering a reduction in expertise costs. I think that this is a good first step, which will allow new players to close the gap and partially eliminate the barrier to entry that the system is. The next step is to implement a cap on expertise, so the increase to level 30 in Year 7 Season 1 is the last that we will see. And the final step that I would do is to roll the 30% weapon damage and armor buffs into the base stat of all gear in the game. This would respect the time and effort that veteran players have put into the game by not removing the buffs that they have worked for. At the same time, it would eliminate the gap with new players, which in a predominantly PvE game is fucking redundant anyway. And finally, it makes it much simpler to balance the game so that content can be challenging for all players. I would love to hear your thoughts on this, so please do leave them in the comments below. I know that some players will be unhappy with this idea, but I do think that it is what is best for the long-term health of the game. The developers also confirmed in the patch notes that the best approach going into Year 7 would be to spend all of your scavenging points. With the launch of the DLC, we will be receiving a gift of scavenging points up to 100% of our shade level. So the less you take into it, the more you get. They also confirmed in a post that any overstacked resources will not be touched. So there are 3 things that players should be focusing on between now and the 27th. Running mules to overstack resources, increasing shade level to as high as possible, and spending those scavenger points. As I reported last week, Division 2 player counts are trending upwards, and we should expect this to accelerate with the release of the Battle for Brooklyn DLC. So it's no surprise that many content creators are putting out guides aimed specifically at new players in the run up to launch, including a look at a stealth change that is being made. Milestone caches have been added to the game, which drop when players hit level 8, 15, 25 and 35. These are intended to introduce players to build creation through complete brand sets, gear sets and weapons that synergize with them, including the capacitor exotic AR. I think this is a great idea, as creating builds is a topic that I often get asked about and will be addressing in a series of videos soon. Ubisoft reported its 2025 full year results this week. From a Division player's point of view, there are 3 things that we can take from them. Firstly, they confirmed that the Division Resurgence will be released in the 2025-2026 financial year. Secondly, we need to know whether the drop-off in sales that Ubisoft is experiencing is impacting on its investment in game development. And the good news is that it isn't, and they continue to invest around 1.2 billion euros a year into this. Finally, we need to know whether Ubisoft remains financially secure. Many commentators on YouTube point to the massive share price drop of Ubisoft as a sign that it is about to go bankrupt. And while that can be a sign of a company in trouble, in this case it is more a reflection of the market's pessimism about the future earnings potential of the group. What gives us more insight into the financial security of the group is its net debt and cash flows. At the end of its latest financial year, Ubisoft's net debt had been reduced to 1.2 billion euros. This is almost exactly equal to the amount that Tencent is investing in the group, and that leaves them in a very strong position. On top of that, cash flows before repayment of debt were positive and have improved significantly year on year. And as we all know, cash is king. So there's nothing in these financials that jumps out to me as a major cause for concern from the point of view of can they continue to invest in the Division franchise? Whether they will is another matter, of course. Just a few other things to round up before we get into the builds. Kamikaze Von Doom continued his PCS coverage this week with looks at the Tinkerer Mask and the Year 7 Season 1 modifiers, both of which are insanely overpowered. DJ Tickle had a look at the 2 new apparel bundles that came out this week, and Tuxedo Bandido had a look at whether Birdie's Quick Fix backpack is any good or not. Well, for PvE, it's not, but for PvP, it may have some uses, as Identity pointed out in his build video. Before we get into the builds, a quick aside. YouTube's algorithm is fucking weird. Run the same search twice and you'll get different answers, and I found some videos just didn't appear. The same goes with this video. If you don't subscribe, you might never see any episode of it ever again. More build guides are published than any other video type, but which build is good and which is not? What I will try to do each week is give you some insight into how the builds will play, their key features, whether they are old familiar builds doing the rounds again, or something brand new that might be worth trying. Before I get into the detail of the builds this week, I want us to flag something new and a returning players should look out for. If you see a build which runs Glass Cannon, then beware. Glass Cannon provides a great buff to damage output, but it needs a higher skill level to play due to the extra damage that you take. You also need to be careful with any gameplay footage that includes the Lincoln Memorial mission. This mission has a number of door spawn points at the start, which experienced players will be able to take advantage of, particularly when they are dealing extra damage due to glass cannon. This may make the builds look easier to play than they really are. 4 striker builds this week, all of them slightly different. Well, apart from the fact that Strikers is the best DPS gear set in the game, Sergeant Greybeard of the Gaming Brigade put out his hybrid build, which we last saw about 4 weeks ago. Died Again Gaming showcased one of my favourite weapons, Sleipnir, which most players have but don't know that they do. Matt Goes Buck included an exotic that rarely gets used, Bloody Knuckles, possibly for a good reason, and I put out a build with the Battle for Brooklyn DLC firmly in mind. If you are looking for a shotgun build, Plumconch showcased an old favourite using the Pummel Talon, and Nothing But Skills ran through the Heartbreaker build he used to solo the climax mission. Turmoil builds remain popular despite the lack of single target damage that they deal. If you want to understand the maths behind these knee pads, then Dispatch's video is a good one to watch. And yes, it is maths and not math, much like it is herb and not herb, because there is a fucking H at the start of it. Refactor builds are back in favour this week. The thing is, they're all pretty much the same. To create a Refactor build, all you really need is the capacitor, an assault turret, striker drone, 4 pieces of Refractor, and slap on 2 pieces of whatever you want. Died Again Gaming put out 3 Pestilence builds to cover all playstyles, which is a format I think is very useful to players in working out what is right for them. Negotiator's Dilemma builds are a bit like London buses. You don't see any for ages and then 2 come at the same time. Negotiator's Dilemma is a great gear set for solo players, taking on hard content like legendary missions due to the AoE it provides. In my opinion, it's better than Turmoil for this, because you don't lose any single target damage. Both of the builds this week using the blue screen LMG, which applies crowd control, also making it great for solo players who don't want to be overrun. See you the same time next week.